Welcome to the Funny Books and Firewater podcast. Each week these idiots pair cocktails with comic books. You can find the cocktails, drinking game rules, and playlists on the blog at funnybooksandfirewater.com. While at funnybooksandfirewater.com, you can also find a drinking game rule to play while you listen to each episode. You can follow us at FirewaterCast on Twitter, and Funny Books and Firewater on Facebook and Instagram. This is episode 154, Kill or Be Killed, part of our Brubaker Phillips team-up month.
Right now?
Right meow.
Right now.
Right meow. Rat meow.
Meow is that?
Hey, welcome to episode 154 of the Funny Books and Firewater podcast. This week we are finishing up our month of Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips books with Kill or Be Killed, one of the more recent books that they've done. This was a limited run series. I believe it is over now, but we're reading the first 4 issues of it. If you happen to be not reading it in trades, but reading it in single issues or online, like our friend Mr. Adam.
You ready?
Speaking of Mr. Adam, he is back.
Yay.
After a hiatus from the show. He was so angry at us, he couldn't record with us for a while. Just kidding.
No, it's hoping you have
his new job.
0.9 megabit Wi-Fi.
Oh
and I was here for the last episode, too. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
Were you
Brian's
here?
forgetful.
I haven't edited it yet. I am very forgetful.
You forgetful bitch.
The problem is that with school now, like, my brain is so on other things that, like, I can barely keep my head on straight. So
No,
I'm sorry.
I've got an excuse for a lot of things.
Okay, fine. We're only missing one person, and it's not Adam. But hey, Adam, how are you?
I'm fine.
That-
Sorry, my mic
the pregnant
for some reason. So I was like, wait, I'm speaking, but it's not, the little lines aren't moving. No, I'm doing pretty good. Just been really, really busy, new job, all that kind of fun stuff. Trying to get back in the swing of things to actually do my job over at Big Shiny Robot, where I'm the reviews editor.
Nice.
I don't know what we're doing yet with Andy Wilson over with the Bored as Hell podcast.
Hey, Andy.
Hi, Andy.
And then, unfortunately, because I was in Boise for so long, Cinema Queens had to take a brief hiatus because, again, 0.9 megabit internet. But after we finish this episode, I'm actually recording the new one, so hopefully that will drop either tonight or tomorrow. And I'm out there curating our Grinder Scruff and Tights with a Z account, and honestly, I am looking for an app developer to help me develop Tights with a Z.
Yes.
Nice.
So if that happens, hopefully I can get rich, like when fund this podcast, and then I'll just be making money off people being whores. It'll be great.
Oh, yeah. That's, you know what? People will always be whores. It'll be
We are
amazing.
all whores in our own way.
Speaking of whores, now the question is, who do I call out?
Rude.
No, I won't be rude. No, I'm going to take that back. I'm not going to say speaking of whores. But speaking of whores, we have Mr. Jason. You spoke up. You're the whore. Enjoy.
All right, I'll take it. Hi, I'm Jason, unemployed writer in Los Angeles. And until I get to new gig, I've just been regaling you all with my various past professional exploits. My first internship in Los Angeles was for a company called Shadow Machine, which was one of the producing partners of Robot Chicken and several other stop-motion shows for Adult Swim. And my favorite moment was when we had some sort of outdoor event, and Donald Faison was there, and he just decided
I was at that.
That's right. You were there. And he just
I was there. You asked me to come up and help, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to come up and help. And I didn't realize we were going to treat me like a fucking intern.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have a fucking job, you asshole.
But he did take a shot with us. So
yes, it's true. We did take a shot with Donald Faison.
Yes.
And I mean, for me, it was really cool because we walked through all the Robot Chicken sets and stuff like that. And I mean, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
And a little less whorish, but still a baby daddy, we have Mr. Todd.
It's not from the lack of trying.
I know, it's true.
So there is that. Hey, I'm Todd. I'm here in Salt Lake as well as Mr. Adam over there. But we're not together today. So
I know. I have 4 individual tracks this time. It's going to be really
we're just
interesting.
spoiling.
Well,
you
it's
know.
because of the restraining order.
That's right. So
Just another piece of paperwork to say I love you.
but yeah, I'm here in Salt Lake enjoying our springtime weather of snow and sleet today.
What's that? Sound like
I don't
dog
know.
barking. Okay.
That was me laughing, but thanks.
So, and then I'm going to be going to the MLS Real Salt Lake game opener tomorrow with nice 35-degree weather. And it sounds like fun. Yeah, there we go.
And hey, I'm Brian. I'm a sound designer based in Southern California and a diehard LAFC fan. Go Falcons, or I don't know if they really go by that name, I'm doing 3 shows for Lyric. In fact, I just got a text message. I'm supposed to tell them my schedule. I'll have to figure that all out. That'll be a bunch of things. So, moving on. Mr. Todd, in his absence, what is the myification of this book?
Well, I will also say, I will get to the myification, but this does a repeat again of it's $9.99 here in the States. In Canada, it's different. It doesn't even.
Yes.
It says that again. It just says different in Canada.
Different in Canada. How different is it? It's a different book entirely. That is the question.
They apologize a lot, and that way they're just like, sorry, it's just different.
Sorry about that. Shoot you in the face. Sorry about that. Shot you in the face. Sorry about that.
Let's do that again. So the myification of this one, I mean, it's rated mature, and it's filled with angsty joy and people just making bad decisions.
It is a lot of bad decisions.
It's mature, poor decisions. Mature and poor decisions. There we go.
Mature and poor decisions. Mature, poor decisions.
Yes.
Okay. Fantastico. Well, it's that time for the drinking games. I would do a drum roll. I don't know if that's going to pick up on my mic. So we will start with Mr. Adam. What is your drinking game rule for this book?
Mine's called Sidebar, Please. Every time they split the comic scenes and have the exposition play out next to the action.
Mine is semi-similar to a certain extent. Mine I'm calling walkie-talkie, which is every time there's a scene with actual dialogue and not voiceover narration, take a drink. Mr. Jason, what is your drinking game rule?
Mine is called A Simple Sin. Anytime Dylan lies, take a drink.
And of course, Mr. Todd, last but not least, what is your drinking game rule?
I've got angst, man. Every time Dylan has a look of life just sucks in general, you need to go ahead and take a drink. That one will get you pretty shit-faced.
Yeah, everyone's going to be drunk.
Drunk bitches listening to podcasts. Cool. Well, fantastic. Then let's move on to votes as to whether or not we believe it is worth you, our dear listeners, hard-earned time, money, and effort to hunt this book down and give it a read. What is your vote, Mr. Todd?
Yes.
Mr. Jason?
Yes.
Mr. Adam?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So we got 4 yeses out of this one, which has been relatively common for this month. So then we'll jump into playlists. Some songs while you all go read this, because obviously you take every ounce of advice that we give you, even the bad advice. And so you're going to go buy this book and give it a read. We'll give you some songs to put on your Spotify playlist while you read this. I'll jump in on this one. I'm going with Institutionalized by Suicidal Tendencies. All I wanted was a Pepsi, just one Pepsi, and she wouldn't give it to me. Mr. Todd, what is your song for the playlist?
It's Every Day is Exactly the Same by 9 Inch Nails.
Okay, Mr. Adam.
Mine is simply the Dexter theme song.
And Mr. Jason.
Vigilante Man by Bruce Springsteen.
I'm not familiar with that song.
It's actually a cover of a Woody Guthrie song, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The things we learn on this show.
I know.
Does anybody have any final warnings about this before they move on?
It's not for kids.
Not for kids.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, there is mention of sexual abuse of a young boy, but other than that, it's just mature in general.
As mature as comic books can be.
Yeah.
Books with pictures and whatnot. Well, then, we will take a brief break really early in the show. Sorry, Sheena, we cut it off early today. Listen to the interesting stuff later, Sheena, for change. Come on now. That may not even make it to the show.
Oh, you totally should. It'll make her laugh.
Okay. Hi, Sheena. So, cool. Then we will take a brief break, and I will play a little ad for you from one of our fellow Hello Sweetie podcast members. I think it's the Geek Parenting podcast this month, if I remember correctly, which has a few of our good friends on that show. And when we get back, we will spoil the living crap out of it. So you have been forewarned. We will see you on the flip side.
While we take a break, here is a message from one of our fellow Hello Sweetie Network podcasts.
When you have kids, it's almost impossible to find time to catch up on all your geeky obsessions. Comic books, TV, movies, games. We get it. Geek Parenting Podcast understands your pain, and we are here for you. We're geeky parents just like you, and we come together once a week to talk about what it's like to raise your little geeklings while staying true to your fandoms. New episodes every week. Find Geek Parenting Podcast wherever you consume your podcasts. Follow us on social media at Geek Parenting Podcast. Sorry, Stefan.
Okay. Who wants to
Not
do
it.
the?
Not it.
Should I do it? Should I? Yeah, I'll do
Okay.
it.
Well, I mean, I could just
Okay.
say, I mean, the very, very simple plot is what's the main kid's Dylan?
Dylan.
So Dylan,
Dylan,
Yeah.
he's like in love with this girl who's like kind of his best friend, but she's fucking his best friend, and he's all depressed and everything. So he goes to kill himself by jumping off a building. He somehow survives and then is approached by this demon monster thing that says that they spared him and that, but it's a life for a life. So once a month he has to go and kill a bad person, or else the demon will kill him. So he's like, yeah, whatever, fuck you. Well, he starts to get really, really sick, and then sure enough, he kills someone. Who actually ends up being a really, really bad person when they find out after he dies, and he instantly gets better. So he kind of goes out there and, from what I remember, starts to kind of relish it and, kind of enjoys what he's doing, and that's kind of where the dexterity comes from.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question of, if he's relishing it or if he's starting to become accustomed to it. He starts to get good at it, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then he ends up fucking his best friend's girlfriend, and...
I don't think they ever fucked
they
it.
do.
Oh, no, they do. You're right. They do. Yeah. They end up hooking up. At one
She's
point in
got
time.
issues.
She does. Do you want to start talking about her issues? That seems like an interesting spot to start.
Well, as growing up, her mother had a tendency to remarry a lot, and she witnessed her mother having orgy parties with a stepdad at one point, and it just really warped her sense of not just her own sexuality, but it really informed everything going on, and she has a tough time having a healthy relationship because of a lot of that.
There's a lot of people in here who have a hard time having a healthy
No one has
relationship.
any relationships.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Sorry, Adam, I cut you off. What was that?
I said no one here really has a healthy relationship.
No,
Hey,
they really
hey. I think I do.
No, I don't mean...
We weren't talking about the actual physical people on the show. We're talking about other characters.
That's fair.
But yeah. Okay. Well, Adam, what are your thoughts on this?
Again, this is one of the ones I'd never heard of it before, so I kind of went in with no expectations. We just talked about it briefly last time about he has to kill someone once a month. It reminds me of something else I've either read or a movie I've watched, where it was the same thing.
Death Note.
It does kind of have a Death Note vibe. We've read Death Note.
Yeah, kind of does,
does.
but obviously with Death Note, he's choosing to do, he have to. Whereas this one, I'll think of it. It's going to bug me. But no, I really enjoyed it. It's violent, it's over the top, but the characters, Dylan's I want to call him like an anti-hero because you kind of want to root for him, but at the same time you don't, because he's kind of weirdly like friend zone incelish for a little bit there, and that kind of bugged me about him. But he's not a perfect person by any means, but I kind of see at the end that he's starting to kind of enjoy it, because the way the thing opens up with him going in and just blowing everyone away, it's kind of like Punisher-esque in a way. I always enjoy media that shows someone like begrudgingly, taking steps to become a different person, and then it kind of in a sense corrupts them, and they become really enamored with the power and how it changes them, or this and that. So I really like that part of it. How many issues are in this? Are there a lot of them?
I think it only goes.
There's 12 issues.
Like that.
There's
12
4
hours.
trades, is what it is.
4 trades.
Okay, so it's definitely a story I want to see kind of what happens next and where it goes. It kind of had interesting because he doesn't have any superpowers, so it kind of had that Kick-Ass vibe to it.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed the first Kick-Ass, not so much the ones that came after it. One of the rare times the movie was better than the book was Kick-Ass 2. But no, I thought
I'll agree with that.
It's not there to change your life. It's just there to be sloppy entertainment that you just want to sit back and enjoy.
Do you want to be honest with you? Having read the entire thing, I was actually relatively surprised by how it ended.
Really?
It has a very satisfying ending that kind of went somewhere different than I was expecting. It starts developing, as it goes on, it starts developing more of the story of the demon, because you really start to question at a certain point in time throughout the course of the book if the demon is real or if it's in his head. Because I think that I don't think they cover it in this book, but part of the same time when he starts seeing the demon again, I think is when he goes off of his medication, and they later reveal that.
Interesting.
So, because I mean, you start realizing, I mean, it sort of is hinted at in this version, I think, which is the way that it's written, is that he's sort of journaling and or talking to a therapist of some kind. And that's sort of why he's revealing all this sort of type secrets. And that's sort of what ends up becoming kind of what it is, which is a little bit of a cliche, but I don't hate it in this book. But I mean, like, so he does... Yeah, it's very interesting, but like the way that it ended, I was actually kind of surprised what ended up happening at the end, and it actually does, in a weird way, leave itself open for a sequel potentially, which would be really interesting for me actually, with where they leave it at. I don't want to spoil that for anybody on the show because we're only covering the first book, but I actually. For me, it was a very interesting finish. The other thing I think is interesting, and I want to get people's opinions on, is this book, and we didn't read it, but there's another book called FATALE. They have this interesting ability of interweaving sort of a supernatural vibe with an actual true crime kind of vibe. And I dig that, but I was kind of curious as to what other people's thoughts were as to, how they felt about that.
Or you mean the part where, like, when he killed the guy and found out he was a really bad guy? Like, was he a...
Well, no, it's sort of like this idea of this demon sort of controlling him. So, like, he's a vigilante, and he's committing these crimes and he's killing people, but there's also this questionable sort of supernatural aspect to it. And FATALE has a similar sort of thing where she is sort of this femme fatale who keeps being reincarnated and keeps sort of being both a muse and a destructor to men and I think women, actually. It's been a little while since I read it, at multiple different time frames. So there's this supernatural-ish vibe along with this really true to reality thing. I think it's an interesting thing that they have this ability to weave them together.
And with FATALE, it has definitely like a Lovecraftian type vibe with all of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's them doing this. Well, on that, Brian, I really do agree with you there with the melding of genres that you wouldn't necessarily put together. They do a great job with. And I really enjoyed it. And reading this one, the tone of this book, if I was to compare it to a movie, not the plot line per se, but the tone and the feel, it reminded me a lot of like Denzel Washington's Man on Fire. So
I haven't seen that.
It is. It is my favorite Tony Scott directed movie.
Really?
Yeah, it would be Man on Fire. I think he took some ideas he did in Man on Fire and Domino too far. And how to be...
I still like Domino.
I liked Domino, don't get me wrong, but it was a little bit like, oh, how far to the edge? And it's like, maybe I should take 3 steps back. Man on Fire is actually the decent 3 steps back, even though he made it previously to Domino. But for that tone and feel, you just have this seriousness thing going on, and it's someone that's on a mission trying to get stuff done, and he's got this demon. And as you were saying, in the later trades, he starts the questioning of the source and the method of this demon comes up. But you've got this guy here going, life sucks so much, I want to just end it. And then he's on top of the rooftop going, maybe I don't, maybe it's okay. And then he trips over himself and he falls down 6 stories and somehow survives it. And he now has this debt to pay.
Gotcha.
So and Kill or Be Killed, it's like it's this debt to pay, and the demon's going, you're not dead, lucky me, and now you're going to do it, or else we're going to take this borrowed time you're living on. And he says, well, if I'm going to have to do this, let's make it worthwhile. Instead of just being indiscriminate about it, he's being extremely discriminate. And you can kind of appreciate it at the same time. It's this veneer of humanity is just being peeled right away on him. And he's like, well, if I'm going to lose my humanity doing this, let's go after people that have already lost theirs. And it's definitely like the anti-hero, flawed person you're watching, and you kind of want to root for the guy, but at the same time, he's terrible. And they do that really well. He's a terrible dude. He's banging his friend's girlfriend.
Best friend's girlfriend.
He's doing all these things, and he's justifying it to himself. And he's lying to everybody, and he's just having this going on, and it's still fascinating to watch, and you're like, I want to keep following this story. And the only thing that's really making him somewhat likable is that insight to the demon in this trade. Because if you had taken that out and you were just looking at him from a different point of view, he's just terrible.
Well, and here's a question for you. Like, Does your perception of him change whether the demon is real or in his head?
Actually,
I think very much, yeah.
Actually, no, it wouldn't for me because. So here's the thing: is again, Brian, you read the whole thing, so you know if it is in his head or if it is really a demon. Is that either which way for him, it's real because let's say a demon showed it to him, and actually it was a demon, and saying you have to do this, I want to make you sick or kill you. But if it was something just his head made up and he's schizophrenic and seeing things and his body is physically reacting to what this demon in his head said, it's still just as bad. I mean, it's still just as hard on him. That being said, though, this is, for me, it's very much like I chose the Dexter theme song because that's kind of what it felt like. But it's a very Faustian kind of version of that in the sense that, whatever it is, if it's real or not, he believes that in some way, shape, or form, the reason why he didn't die when he jumped off the roof was because of this demon. So now he owes them. So that's the trade-off. That was the payoff he had to make to pay the devil was to go kill people. But in the sense, it's kind of like he's getting what he wants in a way. Like, he got to fuck his best friend. His best friend. He's becoming more confident. You can tell that he's getting, he's as the story goes on, he's probably gonna get better at this, and maybe even enjoy the killing. So it's, whether it's in his head or whether it's real. In his mind, he doesn't have a choice. But then that's like, you eventually become the thing you hate. I mean, I don't know the end, but it almost seems like that he could be the one later on that maybe if I was going to do the story, the way I would end it would be that later on the demon has someone else go after him because he's now the bad person. It's like with Breaking Bad, you get this character who did something just because he out of need, and then you watch the downfall.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Okay. It is interesting to watch. And I very much see this demon as the personification of his justification of what he's doing.
Exactly.
So he's taking all of his things and I'm justifying it. It's like, it's personifying all of his justification. It's summed up right there. And this is the thing that makes it say it's okay. And now I'm doing everything I want to do or would like to do or I want to lash out to do. And because you look at him, he was so downtrodden and he had been dealt a bad deal. There's no question about that. And is this a little bit like the, it's not Fallen. What was that Michael Douglas movie where he's like
Falling Down?
Falling Down. Is it a little bit of an event of like falling down going on? And he's just going through and it's just different ways that he's watching this. And and like with Falling Down, you're watching this. Any other casual observer going, this guy is a monster that must be put down. But I'm still reading it and I'm excited. And it's exciting to follow. Yeah. Like, where's the story leading?
Yeah.
So,
Jason, I haven't heard a ton out of you. What are your thoughts?
Well, going off of the question you posed, and this was something I was thinking about while I was actually reading it, if the demon isn't real, I don't think that Dylan is all that different from an actual psychotic killer who has been told by God to kill certain people. He may have justifications and his victims may be horrible human beings, but he could still be just a psychotic person who has decided that he has to kill people every month. I think like that is sort of the warped way that some people might view a Punisher type character too. So it's definitely a very thought-provoking storyline and I'm very curious to know if the demon does in fact end up being real or not. Also,
I can tell you off air if you want to know, or you can
I'll read it myself. Yeah,
I want to read it too.
Yeah. I was also wondering if, going back to when the demon sort of presents himself, if the demon becomes more of a figure. One of my favorite parts of the book was this 2.5-page dream sequence in which Dylan is walking through sort of the frozen streets of New York, and it's just this sort of bright, almost neon and pastel colors all around him. And the demon's talking to him, trying to encourage him to become who the demon wants him to be. And that visual moment I just wanted so much more of because it was, most of the art in the book is great, but this particular sequence is just stand out for me.
No, I liked it a lot. The other thing I thought was interesting is, I just thought it was interesting in the conversation, we've sort of all discussed it as Dylan has chosen to kill bad people. But the thing is, I looked to see the demon actually says that he should kill bad people, which I think is an interesting idea as well. Because I don't know how much that would change the story if the demon says, okay, you need to kill one person every month, and then he decides, well, if I'm going to have to kill one person every month, I'm going to kill somebody who deserves it. You know what I mean? But the demon's actually hinting at that, which is kind of interesting as well. Like, actually, literally, not even hinting, literally says, kill bad people. Because that was one of those things I didn't remember off the top of my head if it was a thing, like a command from the demon or not. But that's kind of an interesting thing.
It's also interesting. Going back to, Dylan brings up this an old story of a hunchback and a town full of people who believe that they somehow accidentally killed this hunchback, and then they bring that supposedly dead body to someone else's house, who then thinks that they killed him, and then it just cycles over and over until the entire town pretty much thinks that they killed this person. And the way that he looks at it is, even though they've all confessed to having murdered someone because they feel so guilty, they all tried to hide it and get away with it, and then at the very end are rewarded by the king. I wonder if that isn't sort of how it ends, is that Dylan believes he's doing something good, but it turns out that he's just covering up for something else.
Okay. That's an interesting idea. I'm not going to tell you, but that's an interesting idea.
And see, this is bugging me because I swear to God, I've either read this comic book or seen it in a movie where it was the exact same thing, where they go out starting to kill bad people, and then it kind of snowballs. It's going to bug the fuck out of me until I can remember what it is.
I mean, it's not necessarily a completely unique. I don't think it's a unique concept, but I think that. I think the execution is unique and interesting. I think that's where I think that's what really shines. I mean, because even if they said, "Oh yeah, we totally ripped this off of some horror movie or whatever," I still think it's a quality endeavor. You know what I mean? I think that what they do here is very.
I'm not saying it's not worthwhile reading, because obviously I enjoyed it. It's one of those things where I know I've seen something similar and it's going to bug me. I can think it's like when you get an earworm and you can't get it out of your head. It's that kind of thing for me. And I also think it's really interesting that as we've been talking about this book, we really haven't talked about the book itself as much as we're diving into the psychology of this. And Jason brought up a good point about if the demon isn't real, what's the difference between this and someone who is killing people because God says so? And it goes back to someone who's doing something horrible because of that. Because let's say God's telling them to go murder people or he'll be murdered, or whatever God's telling him. As much as that person does deserve to face justice, and whether that's going to prison or a mental institution for life, in a way you feel sorry for that person, because what led down this road that got them to this point where they are schizophrenic or hearing these voices or seeing things. And, but I can see that because as someone who's gone through my own personal hell with a lot of stuff, I've seen just with my mind where it's gone to really dark and horrible places. So I couldn't even imagine the next level would be to be someone who is schizophrenic or hearing voices or believing God's talking to him kind of thing. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like the full delusion is a scary place, and I think I could imagine that trying to put a logical face on it would be sort of a relief to a certain extent, even if it was I see a demon, but the demon's telling me to kill bad people. At least there's a moral high ground that you feel like you're on. You know what I mean?
Now, what's interesting, there's moral high ground, and to speak to that and what Adam and Jason was saying, the title of the book is Kill or Be Killed. So as you're looking at it, are you going to be the perp, or are you going to be the victim? Are you going to be the aggressor, or are you going to be the one that's been aggressed against? And the choice is being made, because it also seems, because I was reading up a little bit on the ideas that wanted to be hit upon by Brubaker, though, is remember watching that documentary Jesus Camp?
That thing scares the crap out of me.
Absolutely there. And the thing of it is, during the interview at one point, it's like you're doing all these things that we're terrified that you're watching all these camps in the Middle East are raising these extremists. And the person's response is, well, they're doing it, so we've got to as well. And that was her entire justification of it. And you're watching this here. It's like, well, am I going to be the victim standing by, or am I going to be the perpetrator? It's life's not zero sum here. Either I'm going to be someone's dogmeat, or I'm going to turn them into dogmeat, and I'm going to choose to be active in this. And it's as much as the choice of playing the game, and if you choose to play the game, you're guilty, and if you're choosing not to play the game, then you're dead.
Yeah. Well, and it's become self-preservation at that point in time, because to a certain extent, he tries not to follow through, and then he's so ill that he ends up basically just to try to
Right.
save his
And he
own
goes,
life.
I want to live.
You know what I mean?
So
'Cause
if
he's
I want to
feeling that.
live, someone else must die. And coming to accept that. And it's,
Mhm.
yeah, it's really interesting. Like,
But also at the same time, it kind of does make him a shitty person, though. I mean, again, he is killing bad people, so I guess that's kind of the rationalization. But if someone came to me and like, well, you have to go murder someone a month or you're going to die, it's like, well, I guess I'll just die then. I'm not going to go out killing people.
but that's a choice to be made. And
I don't know.
you watch this character making that choice one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing: is they don't make a comic book out of the guy who says, "Well, I guess I'm dead
Oh
now."
no, exactly. Of course, that's what I was about to say. Was that well? If you said, "Cool, I'll die,"
Yeah.
that means you don't have a story. But
Yeah.
it does add on to the fact that it does put him more. I don't even know if that. Yeah, thinking about that now, I don't even know if I want to root for him anymore. I don't know if I can consider him an anti-hero.
Yeah.
He's again. I think it's just. I don't know because I haven't finished it, but it's almost seems like this is going to be like his downfall. But I could be wrong, but that's if I was writing the story, that's where I would take it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like you picked for your theme song. It's not dissimilar to Dexter.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
See, I would even say it's
um,
more in line of like Tony Soprano and The Sopranos. And it's thing there
Oh, okay.
because as Tony Soprano, he's like he is something. He kind of gets to the point. He's like, well, I am a mobster, and this is what mobsters do, and I wish to exist, so therefore I shall be a mobster and everything that comes along with it. So
Yeah.
and it's could he choose not to be a mobster? He's like, but it's back a little bit to the case of the frog and the scorpion. So and choosing to be that scorpion.
And see, I always just go back
Yeah.
to Breaking Bad with Heisenberg.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
where-
I went back and I'm looking at the moment after his failed suicide attempt and what's going through his brain. And he says, while my other synapses were all exploding with the joy of being motherfucking alive. And then at the very end, tomorrow would be the beginning of a new life, a whole new Dylan. So it's sort of like he took a hit of this wonderful new drug, just living. And then the next morning or that same night, the demon is telling him, if you want to keep living, you've got to start killing people. And so he would have to go through withdrawal of experiencing the most beautiful thing he's ever felt, or keep going with that. So yeah.
That's an interesting point, actually. That it's the immediate come down off of like a huge high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
Well, and if
interesting.
this is all like a stuff he's telling his therapist, I don't feel nearly as bad about the shit I bring to mine now.
I'm damn near
No
boring
kidding.
in comparison.
I was like, listen, Cindy, it could be worse.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think this is a good spot to sort of parlay into some cocktails for this. Mr. Adams, speaking of going to your therapist, I think your cocktail has a nice little tie into that.
Yeah, so mine is called My Own Personal Demon. It's a tiny bit complicated, not too bad. You need simple syrup, orange and black sprinkles, 2 ounces of vodka, 2 ounces of apple pucker, 1 ounce of triple sec, 1 drop of neon green food coloring, and a teaspoon of silver shimmer cake frosting spray. That's kind of the stuff they use like in Mad Max when they spray on their mouth,
Oh, gotcha.
Witness me.
Yeah.
We actually had some. There's a video on YouTube of all of us doing it. It was fun. So what you do is you pour the simple syrup into a bowl and the sprinkles into another. You rim a glass, probably like a martini glass or whatever you like, in the syrup and then dip in the sprinkles. You fill a shaker with ice, or then fill the glass with ice. So don't do a martini glass, do like a highball glass or something. In a shaker, you're going to combine the orange vodka, apple pucker, triple sec, and food coloring and cake frosting spray. Shake the shit out of it, strain into the glass, and then top it with your favorite lemon lime soda and stir.
Awesome. So, Mr. Todd, what is your cocktail?
Mine's called the Rooftop Spill. So with this one, you're going to want to get a shaker, and you're going to take 1 ounce of cognac, a 1/4 ounce of Cointreau, 1/2 ounce of creme de cacao, and then a 1/4 ounce of molasses. But in order to actually use this molasses in a drink, it needs to be half water, half molasses is the part making that up. You're going to put those into a shaker, shake that up, and then you're going to dump that into a glass with ice. And at that point, you want to add 3/4 an ounce of heavy cream because you don't want to get it shaken and incorporated. Stir that thoroughly, and then pour that into a chilled martini glass. So that molasses adds a sweetness, but at the same time, it's this black cocktail that you'd be drinking.
Very cool. Mine is sort of similar to Adam's. Mine is called Demon Possession. It's 1 ounce of light or overproof rum, 1 ounce of citrus vodka, a half ounce of blue Curaçao, lemonade, and a dash or two of bitters. Basically, you put everything into a shaker, shake the shit out of it, and then strain into a cocktail glass over ice. Mr. Jason, what is your cocktail?
Mine is called the Bloody Soul Kiss. You take 1.5 ounces of whiskey, 1 ounce of dry vermouth, 3/4 ounces of blood orange juice, 3/4 ounces of Domino Rouge, which is a sweet aromatized wine-based aperitif, apparently. Stir all the ingredients with ice in a cocktail shaker and then strain into a chilled cocktail glass and enjoy.
So what I find really interesting,
Fantastic.
all of our drinks have orange notes in it today.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
orange in all of them. So yeah.
Okay, well, mine has citrus. I don't have...
It's close.
Yeah. Anyway.
No,
It's close
Curacao
enough.
is orange.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, Curacao is an orange.
Okay. Cool. Does anybody else have any final thoughts before we move on to final grades and all that fun stuff?
Yeah,
The
go ahead.
coloring here. I really think the big standout here, the story is solid and enjoyable. Sean Phillips' drawings are great here, but what I think is really the step up from the other series, though, has to be the use of the coloring and what was done here is really the star of the three. So as great as Brubaker and Phillips are, I really think this was put over the top by Elizabeth Breitweiser. And
who also did last week's book of Fade Out.
Yeah.
But that's a little more subdued in general. Like she really gets to kind of go to town on this one.
Sure, and absolutely. So as you're watching the coloring here, when it's wintertime or if he's doing these other things and you've got this blood red going on between the page covers or even the final page in the trade where you kind of see the Devil's Orgy photos he's looking at, and you're just like, this place it's just really coming into, and it sets that feeling and tone of it so beautifully well that for me that really, like, the coloring here was just simply fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. Mr. Jason, you had a thought.
Yeah, I just wanted to call out the fact that this is a recent book, they mentioned the fact that cops are killing black men repeatedly in this country. And they call it out at least twice in the book, so I think that's worth mentioning.
Obviously,
they also mentioned a psychopath running for office as well, which I think was also
goddamn social justice warriors.
That's. I mean, and that if it's brought up twice, it might be an interesting rationale as to why this book was written in the first place. You know what I mean? There might have been some thought behind that.
Maybe, yeah.
So. Cool. Anybody else have any other thoughts?
Yeah. We have a question, actually, though. His therapist, is it a man or a woman?
I don't remember off the top of my head, to be honest with you. I want to say it's a man, but I don't remember.
Okay. No, because I was just realizing that the only female characters are the love interest, his mother, or the strippers. So I would have liked to have seen just one more non-love interest female character.
No, that's valid. But I mean, there's also only like a handful of characters. Like,
no, absolutely.
This could be shot as any budget pretty easily because there's not a whole ton of characters in this book. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you got him, her, the best friend, the demon, the mother, and whoever gets killed.
And the professor pops up at one point. You could have made that a woman.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's true too.
Small little quibble.
They did announce a film adaptation, so if it goes anywhere, who knows? But currently attached is the guy who did Atomic Blonde in the first John Wick to direct.
Okay.
Oh, that seems like a good logical combination.
Yeah. All right.
So for Self-Contained, which, I mean, this is the first book in a series of 4. So, it does have its interesting points. What is your grade, Mr. Jason?
F.
Oh, okay. Because you want to continue reading, I'm assuming?
Yes. I mean, he just did his first killing. He just did his second, actually, and it didn't go well. And he's obviously going to continue doing these things. And the relationship between him and Kira hasn't been resolved at all. So, yeah, it is not self-contained.
Okay. Mr. Adam.
F as well. I mean, it's a cool story. I really enjoyed it, but it's in no way, shape, or form self-contained, nor was meant to be.
Okay. Mr. Todd?
Oh, let's go with a D. Because some, people die, some things get wrapped up. I mean, it could be much worse. So I'll give it a D.
I'm sort of like at a D as well. Like, I want to say, like, it's an interesting story on its own, but it does have a cliffhanger at the end. So like you deliberately want to read it, but yeah, I mean, it's made to make you want to continue on with this series. So yeah, not necessarily a fair grade for this, but whatever. For writing for Mr. Brubaker, what is your grade, Mr. Todd?
I'll give it a B+. So I really enjoyed it. It's going on. We sure talked a lot about the psychology of what's going on, and it's he did that incredibly well. So yeah, it's a B+.
Mr. Adam.
I'll go with the B+ as well, pretty much for all the things that Todd already talked about. I love things like this where, first I was thinking, oh, it's not really that deep, and then we end up spending over a half an hour discussing psychology. So that's something that is a sign of good writing, that you're able to pull out that much depth out of it in a way I wasn't expecting. So yeah.
Mr. Jason?
I am actually also at a B+ for all the reasons that we've talked about.
I will jump on the trend and say a B+ as well, just to go along with it. For art, for Sean Phillips and Elizabeth Brettweiser, I will give it a grade of, I'm going to go with an A, actually. I think that's what really puts this whole thing over the top and makes it really a fun read. Mr. Adam, what's your grade?
I'm going to go with an A-. Again, for all the reasons Todd already said, the art's really, really cool. They do a really good job with the shading and the way the colors really pop out at you. There's when explosions or gunshots happening, it's not just the gun going off. It's just like the background behind him, like it's almost like a splatter paint behind him of the violence going on. So I really enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. And then when they go to like that, the Ferris wheel thing is all shut down. Everything's very, very washed out, and the only color are actually what's her name's red hair and her scarf. Everything else is very, very muted, and just really plays the emotion of that scene really well.
Mr. Todd.
I'm going to go with an A-. It's solidly done. The colors are amazing. I don't really see stuff different than what Sean Phillips typically done, so it's incredibly solid, but it's not. And the coloring was superior, I think, to the art in general. So, A-. Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Jason?
I'm also at an A. I mean, just quickly flipping back through the book, you can see how much the coloring really does pop out from you for everything, because everything else is just so beautifully and it's sort of understated. And then on almost every page, you've got a little pop of red somewhere, and it really stands out. Yeah.
Cool. So for final overall grades, what is your grade, Mr. Jason?
B+.
I'm also actually at a B+. So then we'll go to Mr. Adam.
B+ as well. I really enjoyed it. The writing's strong, the artwork's amazing, and it's a cool story, and I want to read more. So.
And Mr. Todd.
I can go ahead and give it a B. I really enjoyed it, and it's definitely a book if someone says, oh, I might be interested in a comic, but I don't want any capes or tights, and I also don't want to read anything for a tween. This one would be a great one to do.
That gives us a GPA of 3.22, which is just below a B+, so we'll call it a B+. Average. I mean, 3 of us said B+, 1 of us said B. Like, it's pretty damn close.
Oh, there was one part that actually pulled me out of the book entirely.
Okay, what's
Can anyone guess what it was?
I'm going to guess...
Go ahead.
I'm going to guess the orgy, but I'm not sure.
No. So after his suicide attempt, and he goes to the hospital for a broken arm, he has a $50 copay.
The hospital. Who has that?
Right, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
No, just Jason had to read with one hand during the orgy, so.
That's probably true. No, I guess that's a valid point. That is, that's some good insurance.
For a college student, yeah. What's up with that?
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
Actually, what's interesting is a buddy of mine has a really crazy high deductible for his insurance, and because he's on prep though, with prep you get the copay card covers like the first $6,000 of the medication and it's like $2,000 a month. So by doing that, he was able to hit his deductible within a couple months, and then whatever insurance he had, I don't know. Actually, everything after the deductible was 100% covered.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I think he actually got his top surgery that way, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it was 100%.
I don't know what top surgery is.
It's when female to male trans guy has it's a mastectomy.
Okay.
So.
Oh, okay. I learned things from you, Adam.
I mean, I don't know, and it was with his last job, so I don't know what the insurance was, but it was like a super crazy, stupid high deductible. But then everything else was 100% covered. So that was kind of cool.
You know what? Let's start on recommendations, and I'll look up what we're doing next week real fast. So, who has some recommendations they'd like to bring forth?
I do.
Okay, well then why don't you start us off?
All right, so as we record this, Captain Marvel just came out in theaters, and it's interesting because you already got these stupid incel fanboys who are pissed at Marvel having a female-centric movie, who are trying to trash it on Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes actually changed how people rate movies because of them. You could go on there and say you're interested in seeing and give a brief little summary of it, and they were spamming it so hard that they had to shut that off. As of right now, there's 58,000 reviews, and it's at a 33% because all these people have are making bot or fake accounts and literally saying like half stars is SJW bullshit. It's not. Is it a perfect movie? No, it's not. There's some problems with it. It's a little too on the nose with the nostalgia. Be like, oh yeah, we're in the 90s, haha. But it's really fun. They always say Captain Marvel is the most powerful person in the MCU. They show you why. Let's just say things go boom, and it perfectly sets up Avengers Endgame. I'm not going to say how, but stick to all the credits. As always, there's a mid scene and a mid credits and an end credits one. The mid one's actually the important one. The end credits like the jokey fun one. But no, go see it. It's really cool. The de-aging process they did on Sam Jackson, it's perfect. I mean, there's no uncanny valley. It doesn't look like it's digital face mask. It looks like Sam Jackson from the 90s. So, They do show how he lost his eye, and I loved that. So I'm not going to say anything, but it's wonderful. Oh, and Ben Mendelsohn, he's one of the Skrulls. We know him from and
I like that. I haven't seen it yet, but I like that Lee Pace is back.
Yeah, but you do see Ronan the Accuser for a little bit. He's a Kree, and this takes place before Guardians of the Galaxy, so he ain't dead yet. And it was really fun, and there's some really great moments. And as we had before with Wonder Woman and Black Panther, representation does matter. I went and saw it with Kat, and beforehand we went to Hot Topic, and she picked up she got the Captain Marvel jacket and the shirt, and it's really cool to see. We have women and young girls able to see themselves on screen, and yes, they're not going to grow up and become superheroes because that doesn't exist. But it is cool to be able to.
But guys have the same thing though. We've been able to see superheroes on screen for a long time, and it's something we all really believe. Just because I have a Batman tattoo doesn't mean I think I'm really going to become Batman. I mean, it'd be cool, there was this asshat online was saying oh well, it doesn't matter because little girls aren't going to grow up and become superheroes. It's like, well, no shit, Sherlock, but you're gay. You're already a marginalized person. So check yourself, bitch. The weird reaction I had was my mom actually said that she was surprised that Captain Marvel was a woman, and I was like, Captain Marvel's been a woman for a while. Actually, it's 20, 30 years at this point in time.
Yeah, because Carol Danvers, that was originally how Rogue got all of her powers, because she latched onto Carol Danvers and did it for so long. This is back when Rogue was a bad guy. That's how she got her super strength and flight and everything, because she sucked too much out of it and put her into a coma.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but Captain Marvel has been female for quite a while.
Yeah.
But with these incels and the complaining about Captain Marvel or whatnot, it's I saw someone else comments these are the same people that would complain about Ripley and the Terminator franchise being unrealistic or whatnot with those female leads as well. And no one complained about them at the time, nor should they.
Yeah.
Well, and then someone, I think it was Lee, had made a post about people complaining that she's a Mary Sue. And it's dude, fucking Luke Skywalker was a Mary Sue. Jesus Christ was a Mary Sue. It's get off yourself.
Yeah.
And then one quick thing, and I'll pass it on. There is a cool cameo by Kelly Sue DeConnick. She has a brief moment.
Nice. Well, that's fantastic.
I can say where it is. It's just it's not a spoiler, but there's a scene where Captain Marvel gets off of a subway train, and Kelly Sue DeConnick is walking towards her, and they kind of look at each other and nod for a second. So it's really, really brief, but it's kind of just a fun little thing to keep an eye out for.
That's pretty bitchin', actually.
Yeah. Well, she was on set to make sure that they got the character right. So
and then
okay.
Right. Did you know Ed Brubaker was in Winter Soldier? He played a cop. Yeah.
Oh, really?
So.
Oh, really?
And with him being this month, he's the one who wrote Winter Soldier. So yeah. So he was on set for that one too. So it's nice watching the MCU bring authors in on occasion, type of deal, that had done a lot of that material. So good on them.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Todd, do you have a recommendation?
Not this week.
Okay. Mr. Jason.
Yeah, I'm actually going to recommend another female-led this one's a TV show. It's called Russian Doll on Netflix.
I need
it's
to watch
weird, trippy, nice morality story. It's sort of the complete opposite of this story in that the main character just dies over and over again. So it's kind of like Groundhog's Day, but weirder and actually a little bit deeper without being too heavy.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
But I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, I don't think I really have anything. So unfortunately, until I finish school, like it's hard for me to do anything other than school. But I have a couple weeks coming up. So next week we start our month of April, which we are calling our motorcycle month. This was a random conversation that Todd and I had, and we came up with this list, and everyone else is going to be subject to it. And it's actually a 5-week month, 5 Monday months. So we're going to do 5 books. We're doing Motor Crush, which sort of spawned this. That's the book I read when I decided to talk to Todd about doing this. We're doing Cosmic Ghost Rider, Baby Thanos Must Die. Then we're doing a book called Joyride. Then we're doing a book called Gotham City Garage. And then we're doing the first book of Akira, or at least a certain portion thereof. We're going to sort of judge because those books are big as fuck.
Yes, they are.
So that's going to be our month of April. And that should do it. Does anybody else have any final things they need to bring up before we put a spork in this one?
You should be playing Devil May Cry 5, but I can talk more about that next episode.
Okay. Fantastic. Cool. Then we'll call this good. Thanks so much for joining us, and join us next week for Motor Crush. I actually really dig that book. I'll spoil it beforehand. I think it's really cool, worthwhile. So my vote will be yes. But so we'll see you next week for Motor Crush, and thanks and so long, and thanks for all the fishes.
Bye.
Bye.
And stop.
Thank you for joining us. Please rate us on whatever service you listen on. And remember, at least we're not cinema queens.